Hi, and welcome to the Guilty Secrets Reddit channel. Let me jump right in. My girlfriend told me to apologize to her male best friend after he ruined our date, so I told her to choose. Yeah, that's the whole story in one sentence, but trust me, it gets weirder. So, picture this. I'd planned a quiet Friday night dinner for us at this rooftop place she mentioned once in passing. I had to call 3 weeks ahead just to get a reservation. I got off work early, shaved for the first time in a month, wore actual shoes instead of sneakers. The waiter was already giving me that romantic couple smile as I waited by the table. She was late. No big deal. Traffic happens, right? But then I get this text from her. "Hey, would you mind if Jake joins? He's had a rough day." Jake, the best friend, the emotional support golden retriever who's always just checking in, the guy who gets her in ways I don't, the guy who hugs her a little too long, who once called me dude like it was an insult. I didn't respond. I mean, what was I supposed to say? Sure, bring your emotional boyfriend to our anniversary dinner? I just sat there in this overpriced chair trying to act like steam wasn't coming out of my ears. 20 minutes later, they walk in. Together. She hugs me like nothing's weird, sits down, and Jake just sits next to her, not across, next to her. She orders wine for the table. He orders for her. She laughs at all his dumb jokes while I sit there trying to remember why I thought this night would be special. Halfway through the meal, I excuse myself and go to the bathroom. I just needed a breather. I wasn't crying or anything. Okay, maybe a little. But I needed to get my head straight. When I come back, she's holding his hand across the table. Not tightly, not romantically, but still. It's our dinner. So I calmly say, "Hey, Jake, I think this was supposed to be just me and Katie tonight." And you know what he says? He laughs, and says, "Relax, man. I'm not stealing your girl." I look at her, waiting, hoping she'll say something, anything. But instead, she scolds me. "Can you not be weird? Jake's going through stuff." That was it. That was the moment I realized I was either sharing my relationship or I wasn't in one at all. So I stood up, looked her in the eye, and said, "I'm not going to apologize to him. He's not my problem, but you need to choose. Him or me." And then I walked out. The night air hit me hard as I stepped out of that restaurant. I wasn't sure if it was the breeze or my own nerves shaking me, but I felt like I'd just ripped open a wall in my chest. I didn't even take an Uber. I just walked. No idea where I was going, just away from them. I kept waiting for my phone to buzz, a text, a call, anything. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Nothing. I looked once. She'd seen my message, read it almost instantly, but there was no reply. Just that cold, gray scene. It's wild how silence can scream louder than words. I ended up sitting on a park bench with a half-melted Snickers bar from a gas station. Romantic evening, right? And I know how this sounds. I sound pathetic. I know. But at that point, I wasn't even sure if I was mad at her, or at myself for letting it get this far. We weren't kids. We were adults, living together, sharing bills, talking about adopting a cat next month, maybe even a trip to Italy this fall. But that night made me realize I didn't have a girlfriend. I had a roommate with loyalty issues. An hour later, I finally got the text. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't her saying she left Jake and was coming home. No. It said, "That was unnecessary. You embarrassed me. Can we talk when you've calmed down?" When I've calmed down? I stared at that message so long my phone screen dimmed. That's when it hit me. She didn't think anything was wrong. In her eyes, I was the problem for setting a boundary. I was the drama. I didn't respond. I went home eventually, and the apartment was still empty. I sat on the couch, surrounded by that annoying scented candle she liked, the one Jake bought her last Christmas. And I kept replaying that dinner in my head. Her laugh, the hand-holding, his smug little grin. By midnight, she still wasn't back. I tried not to imagine where she was. With him? Talking? Crying on his shoulder? Something else? I hated that my mind even went there, but once you open that door, it doesn't shut easily. And then, at 1:07 a.m. exactly, the front door clicked. She walked in like she'd just come from a study group. Calm. Casual. No apology in her eyes. No guilt. She looked at me and said, "We need to talk." "No, I'm sorry." "No, are you okay?" Just that. And I said, "Yeah, we do." But deep down, I think we both knew. This wasn't going to be a conversation. It was going to be a turning point. She sat across from me like it was a business meeting. No shoes, makeup wiped off, hair pulled into that loose bun she always wore when she was about to get serious. I had so many things I wanted to say. I had them lined up like soldiers in my head. Accusations, questions, a little begging, maybe even a speech about respect. But nothing came out. She beat me to it. "I didn't expect you to storm off like that," she said flatly. "It wasn't a big deal." I stared at her. Not a big deal? I wanted to scream, but my voice came out low and shaky. "He sat next to you, held your hand, on our anniversary, and you invited him without even asking me first. That's not a big deal." She rolled her eyes, and said, "Jake was just there. I didn't know it meant that much to you. I thought we were comfortable enough not to make everything a fight." Comfortable. That word hit me harder than it should have. I guess we were comfortable. Comfortable enough for her to ignore me. Comfortable enough for her to treat our relationship like a group chat with benefits. I asked her point blank, "Do you have feelings for him?" She hesitated. That hesitation, man, it was deafening. You could have dropped a bomb outside and I still would have only heard that pause. Then she said, "Not like that. Not like that. What does that even mean? Not like what? Not romantic? Not serious? Not yet?" I leaned forward. "Katie, you need to be honest with me. Because this triangle thing you've got going on, it's killing me. I need to know where I stand. I need to know if I'm wasting my time." She finally looked like she felt something. Her eyes went glassy for a second. "Jake's just been there for me in ways you haven't," I blinked. "Because I don't text you 37 times a day? Because I don't insert myself into every part of your life like he does?" "No," she said, "because he listens. He gets me. He doesn't make me feel like I have to explain who I am." I felt like I'd just been replaced by a TED Talk, like my relationship had been slowly rewritten behind my back, and I was only just now receiving the memo. "So, what do you want?" I asked, my voice practically a whisper. "Do you want him? Because I'm not going to stand in line. I'm not going to be the guy you date while you figure out if your soulmate is hiding in the friend zone." She looked away, said nothing, just silence. The kind that tells you everything you were too scared to ask. That's when I stood up, walked to the bedroom. I wasn't even angry anymore. I felt hollow, not cheated on, just discarded. I packed a bag. Not everything. Just enough. I didn't say anything as I passed her on the way out. But right before I opened the door, she said quietly, I didn't ask you to leave. I stopped, turned back, and I said, you didn't have to. Jake's been doing that for you all along. Then I left. I crashed on my friend Matt's couch that night. He's got this tiny apartment that smells like old takeout and wood polish. But it felt like a sanctuary compared to the emotional war zone I'd just walked out of. I didn't talk much. Just mumbled something about needing space and girl trouble, and he tossed me a blanket without pressing. That night I didn't sleep. I kept thinking about that pause, the way she hesitated when I asked if she had feelings for Jake. I swear I could still see her blinking in slow motion, her mouth slightly open, searching for a lie she could live with. In the morning, I turned my phone back on. I'd turned it off the night before because I didn't want to see a text from her. Or worse, not see one. But curiosity's a demon. And sure enough, there it was. One message, 7:42 a.m. Can we please talk when you're ready? No apologies. No explanation. Just that same neutral tone like we were trying to schedule a dentist appointment. I didn't respond. I went to work, did the bare minimum, stared at spreadsheets like they were written in another language, and by the end of the day, I still didn't know what I was supposed to do next. But when I got back to Matt's, I found an envelope waiting for me. No stamp, no name, just my first name written in her handwriting. Katie's handwriting. I recognized the little heart over the I. Matt said some girl with wet hair had dropped it off 20 minutes earlier. Inside the envelope was a key, our apartment key, and a sticky note. I won't be home tonight. If you need to grab your things. That was it. Short, final, weirdly polite, considering everything. I didn't know what I expected to find when I walked back into the apartment. Maybe some guilt, maybe a trap, maybe her. But it was empty, quiet, almost too clean, like she'd scrubbed the guilt off the walls with lemon-scented shame. I went to our bedroom to get the rest of my clothes and froze. There was a box on the bed, cardboard, untaped, and inside were all the things I'd ever given her. The bracelet from her birthday, the hoodie she always stole, the dumb concert tickets I framed from our first trip to New York. Even the stupid little clay cat I made for her at that couple's pottery class she dragged me to. All of it, packed neatly like I was being returned. But that wasn't the worst part. At the bottom of the box was a photograph. One I'd never seen before. It was a picture of her and Jake. Not kissing, not holding hands, but standing very close. Her head was tilted toward his shoulder, and he was smiling down at her like he already knew something the rest of the world didn't. And behind them, our Christmas tree, our living room. That picture wasn't old. That picture was recent. That picture was taken in my home. I just stood there, holding it, trying to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe they took it before I got home from work. Maybe it was just a cute friend photo. Maybe. But I knew better. This wasn't just some awkward dynamic anymore. This wasn't about boundaries. This was about betrayal. And not the dramatic movie kind. No. The slow, quiet kind. The kind that creeps into your home and rearranges the furniture without you noticing. I sat down on the edge of the bed and stared at the photo, trying to figure out the exact second I became the third wheel in my own relationship. And then I noticed something else. The same hoodie Jake was wearing in the photo was hanging on the back of our bedroom door. I must have stared at that hoodie for 5 minutes, frozen in the doorway, like some cliché movie protagonist trying to process a plot twist. But this wasn't a movie, and I wasn't some hero about to save the day. I was just a guy, a stupid, heartbroken guy, standing in front of irrefutable evidence that something sacred had been broken behind his back. It wasn't my hoodie. That much I knew. It was a faded navy blue with this old college logo I didn't recognize. I'd never seen it in our apartment before, but there it was, hanging on our bedroom door like it had every right to be there, like it lived here, like he lived here. I walked up to it, touched the sleeve. It still smelled like cologne, not mine. Some overly confident citrus wood combo that screamed, "Dude who leaves voice notes instead of texting." I checked the tag. A name was scribbled in faded Sharpie inside the collar. J. Cole. Not the rapper. Jake Cole. So that was it. The invisible line had been crossed, and it had been crossed inside my home. I didn't even know how long this had been going on. Weeks? Months? Had he always just been around, hovering, waiting, like a shadow slowly crawling across the wall while I kept the lights on? I started pulling my stuff from the closet with shaky hands, like the hangers themselves were guilty. My suitcase filled fast, but I didn't care if my shirts wrinkled. I didn't care about the suit she picked out for my sister's wedding or the cologne she said made me smell grown. I just needed out. But before I left, I made one mistake. I opened her nightstand drawer. Don't ask me why. Maybe I wanted more proof. Maybe I wanted a reason to stop doubting myself, to stop blaming jealousy, to finally confirm that my gut wasn't lying all this time. Inside were the usual things. A tangle of phone chargers, some lip balm, a half-read book, and a folded piece of notebook paper. I unfolded it. The handwriting wasn't hers. It was a letter. You know I never wanted to hurt him. But you can't keep pretending this is just friendship. The way I feel when I'm around you, there's no comparison. If you ever decide you're ready, I'll be here. I always have been. It wasn't signed, but it didn't need to be. My hands went numb. This wasn't a theory anymore. This wasn't my imagination running wild. This was betrayal. In black ink. No denials. No excuses. He'd written her a confession, and she'd kept it. In the drawer beside her bed, right next to the place I used to sleep. I put the letter back. Not out of respect, but because I didn't want her to know I saw it. Not yet. Let her wonder. Let her sit in silence like I did on that park bench, trying to figure out what happens next. I zipped up the suitcase, took one last look around the room, and spotted something that made my chest cave in for a second. The framed photo of us on the windowsill, the one from that weekend trip to Asheville, the one where we looked like people who actually believed in each other, was gone. Only a faint square of dust remained. She didn't just take it down. She took it with her. The worst part of betrayal isn't the lie itself. It's what comes after. The silence, the rewrites. The way the person who hurt you suddenly becomes strategic with their words, picking and choosing which truths they're willing to admit, and which ones they'll bury so deep. Even they start to forget them. That night, after I left the apartment, I didn't go back to Matt's. I needed space from everyone. I booked a cheap motel outside the city. One of those places that smelled like bleach and microwave popcorn, with a remote that didn't work, and a flickering hallway light that buzzed like it had anxiety. But it was mine. For now. Mine. I spent the first hour staring at the ceiling, the letter echoing in my mind. If you ever decide you're ready. That line haunted me. It wasn't even about what she'd done. It was about what she'd entertained. She'd kept that note. Not in a trash bin, not in a box in the attic, in her bedside drawer. Within reach. Then around 11 p.m., my phone lit up. Her name. calling. I didn't answer. Let it go to voicemail. 30 seconds later, a text came in. Can we talk? Please, just talk. Nothing else. Still no apology, no ownership, just vague appeals to diplomacy, like this was a PR crisis and not the collapse of a relationship. I stared at the message until the screen dimmed again. Then another one. I think you're misreading some things. It's not what you think. Classic. It's not what I think. The line every guilty person says when the truth is too ugly to say out loud. What was I misreading? The photo? The letter? The fact that Jake's hoodie was hanging in our bedroom like a flag planted on conquered territory? I didn't respond, but I didn't block her either. I wanted her to squirm. Let her refresh the screen every 5 minutes, wondering if I was going to answer. I wanted her to feel something, but I didn't expect what came next. At 1:13 a.m., another message. He kissed me. Once. I didn't kiss back. I pulled away. I swear to God. My chest tightened. You know that feeling when a part of you wants to believe them just for a second because the alternative hurts too much? Yeah, that. But then I remembered the letter. Jake's letter. You don't write something like that after a rejected kiss. You write that when you feel confident, encouraged, like you've been allowed to feel those things. She wasn't telling me the truth. She was giving me a version of it. A version she could live with. A version she thought I'd maybe, just maybe, be weak enough to accept. I should have deleted the message. I should have left it on read. Instead, I called her. She picked up on the first ring. Sounded like she'd been crying. Thank you for calling. I didn't know if you would. I stayed quiet. I didn't cheat, she said almost instantly. You have to believe that. No, I replied. I don't. She paused. I could hear her breathing on the other end. I imagined her sitting on that couch in the living room, the one we bought together, hugging her knees to her chest the way she always did when she was trying to look smaller, softer. I didn't want it to happen. I told him to stop. But you didn't tell me, I said. You kept it from me. You let me sit across from him at dinner. You let me thank him when he helped move our couch. You let him in, and not just into our apartment. I didn't know how, she said quietly. I thought it would ruin everything. It did ruin everything, I snapped. But you didn't ruin it by telling me. You ruined it by letting it happen, then lying to my face. She didn't reply right away. I could tell she was holding something back. I could hear it. The silence wasn't just guilt. It was calculation. Is there more? I asked. Another pause. Then, he stayed over. Once. After we fought. I slept on the couch. He took the bed, that's all. That's all. I felt something in me shut off. I don't even remember what I said after that. Maybe I hung up. Maybe I mumbled something meaningless. All I know is that I stared at the wall in that motel room for the next 2 hours, and for the first time in my life, I truly understood what it meant to grieve someone who was still alive. Because she wasn't my girlfriend anymore. Not really. She was just someone I used to trust. I didn't sleep that night, not out of heartbreak. I think I'd already moved past that. But because something inside me finally settled. There was nothing left to chase. No more wondering, no more doubting, no more sitting in silence hoping she'd say the one sentence that would make everything okay. I realized something I hadn't allowed myself to believe before. I deserved better. Not perfect. Just honest. The next morning, I drove back to the apartment one last time. She was there, waiting, sitting on the front steps like we were about to rewind the last 72 hours. She looked up when I got out of the car. Puffy eyes, no makeup, wearing that same old hoodie. His hoodie. I almost laughed at how on the nose it was. "I was hoping we could talk," she said gently. But I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't anything. That was the scariest part. I just felt done. So I told her the truth. "I'm not here to fight. I just came to return the key." She nodded, said nothing. Maybe she expected a scene, a breakdown, a desperate plea, but I'd already gone through all those versions of myself in private. What I gave her now was closure. "I don't hate you," I said, "but I can't be with someone who makes me feel like I'm competing. I loved you, honestly, but now I love myself a little more." That broke her. She started crying, whispering, "I'm sorry," like it was a prayer over and over. I didn't interrupt. Let her feel it. Before I turned to leave, she asked, "Is this really it?" I thought about it. About everything. The laughter, the weekends in bed, the way she used to look at me like I mattered more than anyone. And then I remembered the picture, the letter, the hoodie. "Yeah," I said, "this is it." I walked away and didn't look back. Not once. It's been 6 months now. I got a new apartment. Smaller, but mine. Started reading more. Started living more. Met new people. Even adopted a cat. I named him Winston because he looks like he's judging me. 247. Funny thing is, I don't think about her that much anymore. Not in the way I used to. When I do, it's not pain. It's just a reminder that we ignore red flags when we're desperate to feel loved. That silence can be an answer. And that sometimes walking away is the victory. As for Jake, I heard through a mutual friend that they tried something, but it fizzled out fast. Apparently, real life wasn't as exciting as sneaking around. Who would have thought? And me? I'm good. Better than I've been in years. I'm not bitter. I'm grateful. Because that mess taught me how to spot peace when it finally shows up. Now, here's where I turn it over to you. Do you think she actually told me the whole truth that night? Or was there still more she never said? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And if you like this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon for more real stories right here on Guilty Secrets Reddit, where the truth always finds its way out. Until next time, stay sharp and stay honest.